Reading the Gratitude Live. I'm your host, Mr. Elton, the Apostle of Appreciation, coming to you live and in color from the Gratitude Epicenter of the United States of America, Summit, New Jersey. We're being broadcast on the Methods Network and simulcast on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Welcome to the show. You know, today we're going to give you 30 minutes of inspiration, information, and your personal roadmap to create a culture of gratitude where you work and where you live. Let me introduce you to our guest today. She's a dear, dear friend of mine. Her name is Ayse Birsel. Let me tell you. Ayse is one of Fast Company's most creative people, as voted in 2017, and is on the Thinkers50 Radar List for the 30 management thinkers most likely to shape the future of organizations. She's the author of Design the Life You Love and gives lectures on Design the Work You Love to corporations. Ayse is the co-founder of Birsel & Sec, the award-winning design and innovation studio. She consults with Amazon, Colgate-Palmolive, Herman Miller, GE, IKEA, the Scan Foundation, Staples, and Toyota, among many others. Her work can be found in the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art in New York, MoMA. So welcome to the show, my dear, dear friend, Ayse Birsel. It's a delight to have you with us today.
Chester, it's such a pleasure. And the best part of my bio is being your friend. So thank you. That was beautiful.
You know, it has been a wonderful friendship. I've learned so much from you, and you've taught so much to my family as well, which we'll get into in a little bit later. You know, as we start to talk to Ayse, I know you're going to have questions about design the life you love and investing in yourself during COVID. And we're going to put those questions in our little chat box, and we're going to go to our question command center with Justin. So can we flip to Justin? You want to wait for the crowd there just for a minute? Excellent. our ninja. Well, great. So let's start right in. Let's say, I love Justin. Let's start right in with this idea of how does one design the life they love? Talk to us about that.
Chester, you start designing the life you love and life and work you love by starting with a constraint or a problem. So this moment actually is a great moment to design your life because we are challenged with the COVID-19. If your life is great and perfect, don't touch it. You know, you can't design, you don't want to change something that's really super duper. But when you do have a challenge, that's a great moment to look at it, deconstruct it, and then reconstruct it. So this is a great moment for deconstructing your life to see what it's made up of, see the things you want to keep or change or delete, and then put it back together because we have a challenge and we can design ourselves out of it.
You've got to think like a designer. And you talked a little bit just then about deconstructing and reconstructing. And over the conversations we've had, you've also said a designer has to have a few other characteristics as you approach the problem. You talked about optimism and empathy and collaboration. Expound on that a little bit about how you think like a designer.
So thinking like a designer, I come from a family of lawyers, and I realized that as designers, we think different from lawyers, and kind of notice that these qualities change the way we think and make us think differently. There are 5 qualities. So one of them is optimism. No matter how hard the problem, we think we're going to come up with a better solution. Second quality is empathy. We have empathy for ourselves and we have empathy for others, so we can solve for their pains and needs. We work collaboratively and build on each other's ideas. Today's problems are too difficult for one person or one discipline to solve. So how can we bring different disciplines together and solve a problem and do it holistically? How could we look at something and see the big picture so that we can connect the dots in different ways? And then the last bit of it is, how can we have an open mind and ask what if questions? So those are the 5 things of thinking like a designer. And you know, Chester, what's great about them is any one of us can think like a designer.
And that's the power, I think, in the workshops you do and all the things that you bring together. Is these are concepts really that anybody can understand. I'm curious, of those 5 things, is there one that is more important than the others? Do you have to have all of them? For example, is optimism more important? Is collaboration more important? Or are they all equally important? I'm curious.
That sounds like a trick question. Is it A, B, C, or D? No, I'm just joking. I think that in this moment, there are 2 that, in my mind, that rise to the top. One is optimism, because when you're faced with a challenge, it's so easy to see things negatively and feel like now that we're in this situation, this is going to go on forever. And this is not only limited to COVID-19. In any situation, life or work, when you're faced with a challenge, you have actually a position you can choose. You can either let that beat you and bring you down, or you can say, well, how can I turn this challenge into an opportunity? And that optimism actually allows you to be much more constructive and go forward with new ideas. And I think empathy is equally important, because empathy is about being human and kind of acknowledging that we're all in this together. So if we can appreciate somebody else's problems, we're so much closer to finding a better solution for them. So, you know, I would choose 2 out of 5.
Excellent. So, okay, so we've got those 5 in place. And then you talk about when you come up with these problems, you've got to deconstruct and then reconstruct. And to me, when I went through your workshops and have been to your teas, that's the part I think that for most people that don't naturally think like a designer, that's a really interesting mental process to go through. And I'm going to remind our listeners, by the way, if you have questions, put them in the chat box and we'll get to them soon. But this concept of deconstruct and reconstruct was really fascinating to me. So can you expound on what that means as a designer and why it's so key?
Absolutely. Chester, I remember the day you came to my workshop and we did this together. So deconstruction, reconstruction is how I think, and it's based on my experience as a product designer. And at one point, I realized that there was a system, a process to my madness of thinking differently. And I put that on paper and visualized it and called it deconstruction, reconstruction. And it's really about taking the whole apart so that you can see what something is made up of, so that you can decide which parts are essential, which parts you want to change, and which parts you want to delete, and make choices, which is very much what designers do. Which are the choices that I want to put back together and reconstruct into a new idea? And you can do this with anything. I mean, you could do it with your life. You can do it with an automobile. You can do it with a travel experience. Now that we don't travel, I don't know if that's still relevant or not, but you can take any experience, any topic, deconstruct it, look at what it's made up of, and then put it back together. And actually, it's kind of like Lego pieces, right?
Yeah.
Looking at what are the Lego pieces of this situation, and then I'm going to use these, I'm going to leave these out, and I'm going to add this as this new thing, and then it creates a new idea.
So I have to tell you, getting ready for this, I was thinking of you. We have this little water feature in our garden, and there's this pump, that makes it all work, and it's seized up. So I had to deconstruct the pump, figure out what was going on, what was wrong. I bathed it in WD-40 from our good friend Gary Ridge, and all of a sudden it worked great. And it really wasn't interesting. And I have to say, I did think of you because I thought, this is designer. I'm deconstructing. And then, of course, you have to reconstruct. And luckily, I didn't lose any of the important pieces. Well, listen, let's go to Justin really quick, because one of the things I love about you is that you are international. You know, you were born in Turkey. You learned to speak English in France. You live in New York. You are a citizen of the world. And we have lots of people from different parts of the world that join us every day. So, Justin, give a shout out to our international listeners and viewers.
Hi, Chester. Hi, Ayse. Yeah, we've got a great group from all over the world right now. Quick shout out to Mohammed and Adim in Italy. We've got Sophia in from Greece, CJ from South Africa, Hector in Chile. Hello, Hector. Lorcan or Lorson, I can't quite pronounce it right, from Ireland. Devendra in India. And we've got Guillermo and Marithala in Mexico. So quite the international crowd. I actually haven't seen anybody from the US yet, so we need to do some work there. If you're from the US, give us a little shout out, say hello. And be sure to put your questions in the chat box. I'm looking here and monitoring those questions. Love to surface them up to Ayse and Chester throughout the show, so please share them with us.
Excellent. So, Ayse, during COVID, one of the things that happened is all of a sudden, people couldn't gather to do your workshops. And I know that, we would talk and we would have our virtual teas and we'd bring in friends, to kind of buoy each other up, because, one of the wonderful things about living in New York is just New York. You get to be out on the streets and the libraries and the museums and just the artwork that is everywhere. And you found a solution for that. Talk to us about your virtual teas. I love those.
Yes. I live Midtown New York, and suddenly New York lost its charm. And like you said, Chester, what do you do? And one thing that inspired me is our dear friend and mentor, Marshall Goldsmith. And you and I are both part of Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches. And as soon as we started sheltering in place, Marshall started these daily calls where anyone from the 100 coaches could call in. And it created this instant sense of community. I mean, we all knew we were part of Marshall Goldsmith 100, but we never met every day, right? So that inspired me. And Marshall said, if I could help one person, that's all I'm looking for. And I really loved how accessible he made that idea. And I thought to myself, if I could help one person, how could I do that? So with that, I wanted to reach out to my Design the Life You Love community. And so sent out an email and said, I'm planning on doing some virtual teas. Would you be interested? Meet me on Wednesday, 5 o'clock. And I didn't know what I was going to do and what people would like to do, or if anybody would show up. But people showed up, and it started growing like that. We're every Wednesday at 5 o'clock New York time. We do a virtual tea, and we take one exercise from my book, and we do it together. And we have a guest. And Chester, you were one of my first guests. I think you were my first guest, actually. So I asked one of my friends to join me. Yeah, and you talked to us about gratitude and gave us some tips that were really actionable. And that 1 hour of creativity, really, nobody needs to be a designer to join us for the virtual tea. In fact, if you're listening, you're all welcome to join us. It's just a way to use creativity to get out of our heads and to recognize that we're all in this together. Let's think about our life in this moment differently, with optimism and empathy for each other, and collaborate. That's really the idea.
So talk to me too about, not only was it a great way to reach out to people, talk about the impact it had on you personally as well.
Yes. So, I thought I was doing this to help at least one person, and guess who that person was? It was me. And the whole virtual tea and reaching out to the community actually helps me more than I think it helps anyone, because I just love preparing for it. Then I love how people respond and how extraordinarily creative each one of them is, and the way we help each other make connections. And some people continue those connections. They've told me that some people go on LinkedIn afterwards and connect with each other, and it just is a growing community. And like you, people dial in from all over. So we have people who are calling in from Paris, from South Africa, and I'm like, you're supposed to be sleeping, what's going on? And it's just wonderful.
Isn't it interesting, that need for human connection? And in so many ways, the need to be creative, that people will get up in the middle of the night, to do a virtual tea with Ayse Birsel. Well, let's go to our question command center. Justin's got a question for you, Ayse. Let's see what comes up.
All right. So we've actually got somebody from Turkey. So Demet, I'm not going to try the last name. I don't have it yet. But the question says, the question of hers is about courage. And she's curious to know, Ayse, how are you thinking about courage while reconstructing the life? So does coaching help?
Thank you. Merhaba. I love that question, and that our first question comes from my homeland. So I'm from Izmir, Turkey. So it's great to see you here. So courage is about, it takes courage to design. So it's a very relevant point, actually, because when you're designing, what you're doing is you're taking what you know today and you're imagining the future. And so there's risk involved in that, because what we know is today and what we are imagining is the future. And it's even more courageous to design your life. It's even more courageous to design your life. And the courage for that comes from one of the key points or cornerstones of design, and that's the mood of design. The mood of design is being playful, because when you're playing, you're not afraid of making mistakes. You're like a kid. You're like, let me try this, and you try things, and that's really what design is all about. Design is trying different things, creating permutations of ideas. It's not just one idea. It's like coming up with 10 ideas. It's not 10 ideas. It's coming up with 20 ideas, and then saying, hold on, of these ideas, are there two things I can combine and build into that one idea that gives you the excitement? You feel like, I'm onto something here. And that's where you get the courage from the idea to go and implement it. And that all ties together. So it's about having the courage through playfulness, trying different ideas, and then once you hit and you feel that in your gut, you're like, this is a good idea. And then that gives you courage because you're excited by the power of an idea.
I love what you're saying there too, as far as that's where collaboration comes in too, right? You get the courage to do it, you get that energy, and then once you start to collaborate and have that open mind, then you can get that energy that comes from the teas that you do and from the groups. I mean, I've been there where everybody's in their different little squares, and that energy starts to become a little contagious, doesn't it?
It really does. And I'm so glad you brought up collaboration, because I see collaboration like my wings. It helps me fly. And during these times, during COVID, one of the positive things, talk about turning a constraint into an opportunity. One of the most positive things that I've seen and experienced is the number of collaborations has skyrocketed. I mean, Chester, look at us, right? You and I have been talking. We've been friends. We really love each other. And we've been talking about collaborating. And boom, here we are collaborating together. And this has been really happening across the board, where people are building trust very fast and trying different things. And then because we're all sheltering in place and we can't go anywhere, it's all happening globally across Zoom and LinkedIn and the Methods channel. this is something that I think we're going to keep going forward when we come out.
Yeah, I hope so. And by the way, you are the easiest person to collaborate with that I have ever met. So you make it really easy. We have got some more questions. Justin.
Yeah, okay. So there's a number of people talking about the deconstruction, reconstruction process. So we've got Leslie Schneider from Neenah, Wisconsin's writing in. We've got Arnetta Taylor from Texas on the phone here. And then we've got Noradine Kobar, which I'm not sure where we're from. But a number of questions that are, I want to kind of hit you with a few of these because I think they might weave together. So Leslie says, what tools do you reconstruct? And then Annetta says, when it comes to deconstructing a problem, what's your favorite affirmation word of encouragement that comes to mind? So kind of a 2-in-1 there.
Okay, so I almost want Chester to hold up my book to the deconstruction page and kind of shake it around. And it's for deconstruction, really the physical tool is your mind mapping. So you just need some paper and pen or an iPad and stylus. And then in terms of how you do it is, let's take designing your life. Your life is this one big topic, and you can deconstruct it into its building blocks. So they're building blocks. What are the building blocks of your life, right? It could be your family, your friends, your work, your hobbies. So those are the building blocks, and then you could start breaking those into their smaller pieces and say, in my family, like my family, I have my family in New York, I have my cousin in Florida, then the rest of my family is in Turkey, and then some of my family is in France, and then some of it in Senegal. And geographically, I can start thinking about it. I can start thinking about the older and younger people. And as I do that, I could do the same with my friends. I could do the same with my work. And as I do that and break the building blocks into their smaller pieces, what I'm doing is I'm breaking the links between things that form my preconceptions. Once I have it all out, then I can think about, well, can I combine some of these things together? For example, can I take some of my friends and take some of my work and combine it together so we can collaborate? Maybe one of my strengths could go well with one of their strengths, or they have a strength that would cover one of my weaknesses. So those things then start to make these new connections and allow me to rebuild my life in new ways. So those are the tools for deconstruction. Is quite simple, actually. It's kind of like if you make food, and before you make food, you think about what your ingredients are. Deconstruction is thinking about the ingredients, and then you think about, well, how do these ingredients go together?
Yeah. In fact, it starts on page 50.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we talk about deconstructing chicken soup, which I think is great. So it's on page 50. The book really is fabulous, by the way. It's all the sketches and so on. The second part of the question, Ayse, was about what is your affirmation word? What is your go-to word that keeps you going through that deconstruction and reconstruction?
My go-to word, I think, is just to start. I had to give myself a moment to think about that. But the thing is, it's really not easy to start something. And when you're designing and thinking creatively, the only way you can do that is by actually doing it. Like, I cannot sit still in my armchair and wait for ideas to come to me. I have to literally pick up my pen and then start writing and drawing and mapping things out. And so it's really important that I give myself the prompt of start. And often, every morning, I feel this, I'm a little bit afraid every morning because I feel like, will I be creative today? Will I be able to come up with a new idea? So just reminding myself of like, just do it. Start. That would be my go-to word.
I love that. So I don't know a lot of Turkish, but I do know teşekkürler. Teşekkürler. It's my favorite word in Turkish. So here we go.
And that doesn't surprise me from the from you, apostle of appreciation. Very, very beautiful
word. Thank you. Well, you know what? We're going to run out of time here. I knew we would. You often say, enjoy the moment. And I love that about you.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk about enjoy the moment and then 3 tips for people as they start to design their love or design their life in this time of COVID.
Yeah, I actually learned that from a friend of mine, to when you're enjoying yourself, to stop and say, this is a good moment. And actually to say that out loud. And now my kids tell me, like, that's the one thing we know. Mom says, this is a good moment. But it's almost like a affirmation that, you know, appreciate the moment you're in. So that's this is a good moment. Enjoy the moment.
3 things that I would do to design the life you love. 3 things to remember. Go for it.
All right. The 3 things. Number 1, I already said it a couple times, so I'm repeating myself. Turn a constraint into an opportunity. And that's how you get to the optimism of design. So a very simple example would be, I have a small apartment. You know, I wish I had a bigger apartment. But the opportunity is, if you have a small apartment, it's easier to clean it. So just take something that bugs you and lean into it. So turn the constraint into an opportunity, because that's where ideas come from. So the second one is about making what you need and what you want coexist. Often, I don't know if you noticed this, but what we want and what we need are opposing to each other. I want to go on vacation, I need to work. Those things cancel each other out. If you can make them coexist, you're creating incredible value. So what I do is I work on vacation, and when I'm working, I try to feel like I'm on vacation. And if you can do things like that, be mindful of your needs and wants. And when they're opposing, instead of choosing one or the other, choose both. And so the third one is a reminder that whatever you deconstruct, you need to reconstruct. Often we deconstruct things, but we forget to reconstruct. Deconstruction by itself, you end up with a bunch of pieces. It doesn't lead to a new idea. But if you can look at those pieces, make a choice, and then put them back together, that's where you start to have really powerful ideas. So deconstruct, but don't forget to reconstruct.
Excellent. You know, we always ask this question, where did you find your gratitude today? And by the way, before I forget, go to aysebirsel.com. There are a lot more questions about how is fear holding us back from doing all these kinds of things. We haven't got time to get it, but really quick, where did you find your gratitude today, Ayse?
Ta-da!
Hey, I brought my copy too. Isn't that great? Thank you so much. Which leads us right into, you know, listen, as always, it's a delight to be with you, Ayse. Take a chance, go attend one of her teas, buy her wonderful book, The Design the Life You Love. Deconstruct, reconstruct. This is the time to invest in yourself. Ayse, thank you so much. You know how much I love you. It's been wonderful to be with you here today. Come back and join me soon. You got it.
Chester, thank you so much. This was a true pleasure.
Wonderful. Good for you. Okay, so now before we wrap up, we've got to give a little nod to our sponsor, Harper Business, who is so delightful to sponsor this. You know, leading with gratitude. It was it was Alan Mullally said, I love this book. And what do you do when you love a book? You buy that book. Absolutely. Well, listen, thank you so much for Ayse. She never disappoints. Our next show, it'll be Thursday here at 1 o'clock. We're going to welcome Connie Deacon. Connor is the author of wonderful books, Talk Less, Say More, and Become the Real Deal. She'll help you rethink your leadership brand. She'll help us all communicate better and more effectively. She is beyond delightful. Please join us. It'll be 30 minutes well spent. Well, listen, I want to give a shout out to the great folks at Methods Network. You can find all our past shows and Marshall Goldsmith shows at methods.of/ for the past episodes. Thank you to Justin in the Question Command Center. Wave to the crowd. Wave to our friends, Justin. Oh, and look at the book he's reading. Absolutely. And always, Brent Klein, the greatest online producer ever invented with his orange cat. Love it. Same bat time, same bat channel every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 o'clock. Give us 30 minutes. We'll give you great information, inspiration, and your own personal roadmap to develop a culture of gratitude at home and at work. Listen, in this time of COVID, let's be more grateful. Let's be more kind, and let's be more patient with each other. I'm grateful for our time together. Take care, everybody. See you Thursday at 1 o'clock. Cheers. Grateful for our time together. Mwah.